What it do, everybody? Back at it again, Universal Babel X, and I'm here to review Mortal Kombat X, otherwise known as Mortal Kombat 10. And I played the specifically Mortal Kombat XL edition on PlayStation 4. This is my thoughts and review of the game. Now, when it comes to storyline, I find the storyline was good, and this is me coming off the playing the Mortal Kombat 1 reboot, the newest version of the game. I found the biggest differences, let's say comparing those two, was that this game felt more game-esque storyline, like what you'd expect out of a Mortal Kombat franchise in the general scheme of things over the past 3+ decades of story modes, where it comes across it's something suited for a game or Kombat game specifically, where the storyline is a little bit far-fetched. Now, comparing it to Mortal Kombat 1, or Mortal Kombat as it's called, the reboot, the newest one that came out a couple of years ago. Now, that one seemed more Hollywood-centric, where it flowed kind of in a consistent way. And everything that was done wasn't too far-fetched. It all kind of fit. Basically, when you combine all the cutscenes, if you watched it from start to end, it came across like you were watching a movie. Now, with the Mortal Kombat X, Mortal Kombat 10 storyline, I found it was kind of all over the place, and a lot of the stuff was the story didn't flow as well. I found it was kind of very cartoony in a certain aspect. There was way more bloodshed, more gore in the story. The cinematography and so on, the cutscenes, which was a nice pacing compared to me recently playing Mortal Kombat, the reboot. Overall, I'd say, though, when it comes to comparing Mortal Kombat, the reboot, and then Mortal Kombat 10, to be honest with you, as much as, a lot of people might say otherwise, I think Mortal Kombat, the reboot's storyline played overall better, and the plot, the cinematography, and so on, and overall character design was better. Now, me playing Mortal Kombat XL on the PS4, of course, this came fully loaded with all the DLC characters. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Alien and Predator franchise, and I do like Friday the 13th, so having Jason Voorhees, those three characters in general on here, seemed like the perfect trifecta for me when it comes to DLC characters. They're characters I either really enjoy and generally know about. As you know, sometimes you'll have DLC characters that kind of hit or miss, where let's say you have 5 and 2 of them you like, the 3 other ones are like, okay, whatever. But these ones I found they were good. On top of that, I don't know much about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've never really watched the movie, but Leatherface, generally speaking, I found that it was it's like, okay, it's a good character, nonetheless, plays different, plays good, has its unique quirks. So those 4 movie or, outside the Mortal Kombat universe character additions through DLC were a great addition. Now, of course, you get Tanya, which her character design in this game I found was very bland, to say the least. But nonetheless, a good return for a character that hasn't been featured in a long time. Tremor as well. I did like his character design, but I wish they added the classic ninja attire that you can kind of switch to if you wanted to. Maybe the addition is there if you unlock it somehow through the crypt, but I haven't found it yet. I'm still fairly fresh into the game after beating the storyline. Of course, you get Goro. Now, with Goro, you get generally just the one main setup or attire. Then Triborg as well as a DLC character. So you get 4 movie characters, outside the Mortal Kombat franchise characters in Leatherface, Alien, Jason Voorhees, and Predator. And of course, you get Tanya, Tremor, and Goro with Triborg. Now, basically, you can play as Sector, Cyrax, and Smoke as cybernetic versions of them, of course, and which is all fun and dandy. But when it comes to Triborg, it's the variation in playstyle that triggers change in the attire. Now, the attire doesn't very much grasp the iconic depictions of, let's say, Cyrax or Sector, but nonetheless, these are awesome additions. So basically, you get 3 for 1 in the Triborg character addition through the DLC. Now, before I go back to talking about the storyline, now I found a lot of the character designs were kind of bland. Um, for example, Jackie Bricks, Cassie Cage, and even the version of Takeda, the general one that you see in the story and his main attire, kind of all seems like they're interchangeable. I get it, they're, military garb or whatever special units, but still, nonetheless, it just comes across so generic and bland. Melina, I found her attire was, basic. Nothing stood out really. I found her facial, the way they made her look facially, could have been done way, way better. Sub Zero, it's standard, nothing really too crazy, to be honest with you. There's been way, way better over the years. Same with Scorpion. But his Hanzo Hasashi depiction, this attire that he has, is very nice. I like this one a lot. Um, Same with Katana. Her attire actually I found stands out a little bit better than Melina. And this is going for their general when you go over it. And of course, sometimes I'll go into their additional attire you get. But Katana's attire overall compared to Melina is way, way better, but still kind of bland. Kenshi's is pretty good. It's one of the better ones over the years. Not too bad. Can't say much. Sonya Blade's, same thing, generic. It's, if you've seen Cassie Cage's or, the other ones I mentioned earlier with Takeda and Jackie Bricks, Sonya Blades is very bland, super bland. Now, Jax kind of teeters on that end, but makes up with it with the Carl's Weathers attire. Now, this is speaking about specifically Mortal Kombat XL. These are kind of all the DLCs you get automatically from the gate. So Carl Weathers is from the Predator movie, the original one, iconic character in that movie, and it's basically Jax cosplaying as Carl Weathers, and then you get the MK3. I did kind of like Jax's overall facial design in this one, but you know what? It was pretty good. I can't complain. Could be always worse. Kung Lao, pretty good. Could be way better. But overall, it's pretty good. Hits the spot. Jason Voorhees, pretty good. Iconic. Alien looks great. Leatherface looks awesome. Predator as well. Kind of comes across more of the Predator from the first one, if that's what they were trying to grasp. I'd say it's from the first movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, Shinnok in here looks pretty good for his character design. Kano is really, really, really good. I just don't like the overall the design of his glowing chest piece that he has to his looking from me looking on the screen. It's kind of on the right side of his chest, but otherwise overall it's still a 9.5 out of 10. 9. Johnny Cage looks horrible in this game. I think this is one of my worst like Johnny Cage character attires. The way he's depicted, his whole facial structure and everything is kind of just all over the place. Aaron Black, total miss. I don't like this one. There's certain parts of it I like are decent, but his facial design is bad. His overall attire could be way better. Kung Lao, or Liu Kang, sorry, is pretty good. It could be better. Nonetheless, it seems like they kind of phoned it in with a lot of these. You get the MK1, the original Mortal Kombat 1 from back in the day attire. And then there's these attires you get here and there where they're basically wearing soccer jerseys for Brazil. Some other characters have it too. Liu Kang has it. Ermac, like again, kind of seemed like it's phoned in. It's not bad, but could be better. You get the Pharaoh version of him, which is pretty dope, and the classic ninja skin from back in the day. Kotal Khan, same thing, kind of seemed phoned in, seen better attire, but not bad overall. Still, decent. I find the way they did Reptile in this one horrible. You get the general Reptile skin and then Kraken version of him, which just not my style. Of course, you get the ninja skin. I feel they did Reptile horrible in this one. And with the Mortal Kombat reboot, the way I found how they made him look, I thought that was initially, but you kind of, bad, but you grow into it and it kind of grows on you. And that version of him actually comes across really, really good, especially when comparing it to MKX Reptile. It just looks horrible. There's a new character, at least the first time I've ever heard or seen or played as, Farah Tor, basically a symbiotic powerhouse with a little girl child on top. Basically, it plays as one character, but they kind of play together. I really enjoyed the introduction of this character. There's not a lot of backstory, at least that I come across playing it, not that I recall seeing or hearing. But you get the general one and then an executioner form, which looks even better than the attire that you generally see with them. Dvora as well, pretty good. I feel like I've seen this. It kind of looks on par with the last game I've played with her in it. I believe it was Mortal Kombat reboot. I could be wrong, but not bad. Seems plain. Raiden's really good. Comes across very classic-esque, like the way you traditionally remember or see Raiden back in the MK123 90s era, but very modernized. So that's a nice touch, kind of homage to the old attire. Quan Chi, pretty good. I find his facial features and so on. His attire is pretty good, and you get the MK4 version of his attire. Goro, absolute beast. This is my favorite uh, game, Mortal Kombat game, where you can play as Goro. I find he's just so good to play with in this one compared to any other one. Just moves more fluently and just everything about him, powerhouse. And so Tremor, now he reminds me of Bane with his attire. Like I said, I believe I said it, but I wish, sorry if I repeat a few here, the last two. Tremor's attire reminds me of Bane, which is awesome. He's kind of a powerhouse. I just wish they could have added the ability to have him in his ninja costume, the old school, back in the day, kind of just the plain, you know what I mean, how Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and so on were in. And Triborg, of course, with Smoke, Cyrax, and Sector, which is kind of, I get it, you get 3 characters in one as a DLC, and, there's a little bit of a change between when you pick them, and it's basically when you pick them, it's a fight variation. So when you pick the variation of Sector LK9D9, well, you gain Sector specials and abilities, of course, his look and so on. Cyrax, same thing, LK4D4, gain Cyrax special abilities and specials. Gain Smoke specials and abilities if you pick Smoke LK7D2. Now, generally always the headpiece or the helmets always stood out differently vastly between, let's say, Cyrax and Sector. Here it's not really noticeable. Overall, I do at the end of the day, this is me nitpicking, I do really enjoy the overall character design. It feels like way more gritty, let's say, compared to Mortal Kombat the reboot, which I do enjoy. It just comes across like a more of a gory game, and kind of gives more of that MK feel to it. Now you have how many arenas you get? About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 arenas, different ones, including the training room, Lin Kuei Temple, Sky Temple, Quincy Fortress, Jinsei Chamber, Refugee Camp, The Cove, Emperor's Courtyard, Crossroads, Deadwoods, The Pit, Destroyed City, Khatan Jungle, and Outworld Marketplace, with a few of them having a little bit of a variation, but it's more of a kind of a palette swap of certain parts of the map. But going back to the game itself, now the storyline just felt all over the place for me personally. It's kind of, if you turn your head for a second to look at something beside you or around you, you'll miss a part where you'll kind of feel like, okay, what's going on? It's kind of fast and you're jumping. The timeline jumps a little bit. This is me not trying to spoil it. The timeline jumps a little bit, but not consistently. But even without that, it's kind of like, okay, what are they trying to get at? Basically, the storyline, the cinematography, the cutscenes are all based on more so fight scenes than monologue. Of course, there's a lot of monologue nonetheless, still more than the fight scenes, or they're intertwined where there's fight scenes while you're fighting while you're talking. Characters are talking, but it felt kind of all over the place in that aspect. Now the voice acting is atrocious. I don't know what it is, but I could not stand it. I thought it was, this character, that character, a certain amount of characters, but overall, the voice acting is horrible. It consistently seems out of sync. Just way over the top. It's I don't know how much effort they put in. Of course, they put in effort. The creators, the developers, but it just seems like they could have done way better, especially coming off of playing Mortal Kombat, the reboot, the one that came out a year or two ago, where it just felt so, Hollywood's just so extra. Not only, of course, the graphics are going to be updated and better as it's more of the current gen system. This is like a generation or two before that, but it just seemed like they could have done way better. It just so over the top acting, like back in the day, like 90s 80s b movie action movies, whatever way you want to word that. The straight to video or straight to this or that, with Steven Seagal after he fell off, Van Damme, Charles Bronson, Chuck Norris, those type of movies. uh, those type of movies have, I'd say, better acting than this, which is kind of a surprise. And I think this is out of the last four Mortal Kombat games that they've released, I think this one, when it comes to storyline, the campaign, the voice acting is atrocious. Nonetheless, it is an enjoyable story and campaign, and it's fun nonetheless. It's a Mortal Kombat game. You can't expect The Last of Us story or effort, or what I mean, like they're not putting billions of dollars in this. At least I hope they didn't, because that wouldn't make sense for what they put out in that aspect. But yeah, a lot of fighting compared to Mortal Kombat the reboot. In the story, I found in the Mortal Kombat the reboot, the recent one, they had a lot more. It was more of a chase, running after stuff, and there was more intrigue in that aspect. This one, it was more fighting, and you see the fighting in the cutscenes, and of course, that was fun. It makes it feel actually like a Mortal Kombat game rather than, let's say, even with as good as Mortal Kombat the reboot was. It's you can tell they're trying to go in a different direction, try to make it more of a standardized AAA game with, okay, you're playing. Of course, it's a fighting game, so you're never going to get that. But it's, how those games come out where you're basically watching a movie rather than playing. There's more watching the cinema cutscenes than actually playing. And if there is playing, you're toggling a button or two in between scenes to trigger something. And then you get to play a little bit, and then you go back to watching more and more of the cutscenes, kind of like Yakuza in a sense, to a degree, but generally how AAA games tend to be, the bad side of them. Overall, the gameplay, though, is amazing. It's super fun. Nonetheless, the game is great. Like, it's not that I'm not enjoying it. This is me nitpicking it and critiquing it. The gameplay is crazy good. Better than Mortal Kombat 11, in my humble opinion. Mortal Kombat 11 comes across very standardized across the board with all the characters. They all kind of feel very, very similar. Mortal Kombat 1, the reboot, for example, it's good, but it's same thing, kind of standardized feel overall. This one, when you go from, let's say, playing as Jackie Briggs to Goro to playing as, I don't know, Predator, it all feels drastically different. It seems like they put a lot more effort and time into distinctive gameplay and feel for every character. Now, not only that, but when it comes to the variations of, let's say, each character, for example, Sub-Zero, you get Cryomancer, and then you gain the ability to create ice weapons, or Unbreakable, you get Defensive Frozen Aura and Barrier of Frost. And let's say variation of Grandmaster, it gains Ice Clone that can be thrown or used as a shield. Now, this at times for each character adds a little bit of a variation to their attire, a little bit like one, let's say, for example, Sub-Zero. If you pick Grandmaster, he has like an additional emblem, a change of like lighting to his skin. Or let's say if you pick Unbreakable, his mask kind of comes across looking more frozen. Variation of that, not only in attire, but as well as how he plays. So not only are each character play styles and gameplay abilities different when you pick them, but they also add that flair of changing the attire a little bit. But yeah, drastically the characters playing from one another differently, of course, and you feel the weight difference and their movement and so on. It's very, very, very good, and I think the best, you'll get that best feeling out of the last 4 games of Mortal Kombat. Now, my personally favorite characters to play in this game as are Alien, plays very good, Kano, and generally I've never been a Kano fan. Surprisingly, Scorpion, I didn't find I felt as comfortable as I always do when it comes to Mortal Kombat, because Scorpion is generally my favorite character to play as and my favorite character in general with Mortal Kombat games. But Scorpion didn't play as... He plays good nonetheless, but it's not as, great off the bat kind of thing. I found Takeda, or I'm not too sure how to pronounce it, was a surprising, really good player to play as. Farah and Tor play really awesome. Raiden, one of my favorite versions of Raiden to play as in this game. And the worst ones, the absolute worst players I've ever played as or characters in any game are Jackie Briggs. Absolutely horrible. She's the worst. And Cassie Cage, I felt like I had to consistently spam certain moves, especially in the story, because it was just their moves either suck, they're not effective, or they're just overall horrible. Horrible characters. I've never had any worse characters that I've played as in any Mortal Kombat game at all. So otherwise, yeah, the game is awesome. Would highly recommend it. If you've never played a Mortal Kombat game and you want to play, let's say, some of the newer ones, like the last 4 released Mortal Kombat, the original reboot where they redo the Mortal Kombat 1 to 3 storyline, that one I believe came out for PS3, don't quote me on it. That's the one with Sub-Zero and Scorpion on the cover, and then of course they had Mortal Kombat 10, 11, and then again the reboot with Mortal Kombat, the newest one that they released as a reboot. I would recommend playing Mortal Kombat 10 and playing Mortal Kombat XL specifically. Now I have it, like I said, on PS4, the disc version, and from my understanding, it's all on disc if you're a physical collector of games, so you don't need internet or anything. Everything is on disc, so you'll always have it as long as you own it and it's in good condition. So basically that's a plus. For example, I have Mortal Kombat 11 and Mortal Kombat the reboot on Nintendo Switch, and I have to download the majority of the file or the game onto the system. Now if the servers go down, or what I mean, I didn't download it or something happens, whatever, basically I can't just put that game in and play. Or a lot of the times, for example, they'll have, let's say, like the Ultimate Champion edition of Street Fighter 5 on PS5, but you'd think, okay, you have all the characters, but you actually get a DLC code, so the base game's on the disc, but not all the characters are there. So this is a really, really good thing, especially if you're a physical collector. But yeah, nonetheless, highly recommend playing Mortal Kombat 10, especially get your hands on a Mortal Kombat XL version of it. You'll get all the characters and so on. And at the same time, I forgot to say, when it comes to the crypt is an added feature I haven't seen since I believe it was Mortal Kombat. Now, don't quote me on it, because they took it out when it comes to Mortal Kombat, the reboot, so it was nice seeing it in this game. But I found the overall concept of it, the way they designed it and the way you walk around, kind of felt flat. It kind of felt like they barely did anything graphically to it that they could have done, but nonetheless it's a nice thing to see, kind of kill time with. It does get repetitive having to go walk around, unlock this, unlock that. I guess they could always make a better version, but nonetheless it is a great thing, and thing we've been seeing kind of here and there in the Mortal Kombat franchise. But yeah, overall, you get the towers and so on, faction wars, which haven't really played in, but generally speaking, for the overall game, I would highly recommend it. For fighting fans, game fans, and especially Mortal Kombat fans. Took too long to get into it as I didn't have a PS4 until recently. I don't have a PS5, so opted out for the cheaper version, and kind of worked my way up, I guess, over time, as gaming is freaking expensive and the hardware only seems to be going up in price rather than down. As, let's say, for example, Nintendo Switch was out for how long? Like 6-8 years, and they still increased the price even after having Nintendo Switch 2 out, which is ridiculous, because any other previous generations, you introduce a new system on the market, the older ones always go down, right? But yeah, nonetheless, I highly recommend it. Check it out, play it, check out some gameplay, see if you like it. But I would, for the price of on average $15 complete in box for PS4, it's a steal of a deal. Follow, subscribe.